Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dice Scum Live. Name's Adam, and I'm actually by myself for this one, at least initially. I don't know if others of the crew will come in. So, I mentioned last week we were going to look into something not White Wolf related, and it's something that I've kind of had for a few years at this point. I think it first came out in 2017, 2019. Never really got around to looking at it. I actually got it because one of the crew members, he sometimes appears, especially in some of our older videos, Randall, he really does like post-apocalypse settings, and I was kind of looking into some things for that. And one of them was actually Gaslands, which is actually published by Osprey Books of all things, or Osprey Games. So this is actually the Brefield version. I got this a couple years ago, actually. And from what I understand, it's a minis game. To give you an idea, looking into this, you can actually get away with using your old Hot Wheels or just like old car toys that you just have available. That's kind of the atmosphere it has. So if you have like old Hot Wheels or old like all metal body cast cars, you can get away with it. Oh, Randall, he's kind of occupado. Uh, he's just kind of occupado in this time of the week, so you don't usually see him too often. But yeah, we're looking into a good old fashioned miniatures game today. Not necessarily the specialist. That's more the speed of some of the other crew members. If you're wondering, I am not a minis gamer. Unfortunately, I'm much more of a pen and paper type of guy. Yeah, it's type of Road Warriors. By the way, sorry I was late. I mentioned in the chat I was just finishing up eating dinner. I had a nice chicken sandwich. So let's see what we're getting into. Well, first off, it's a little under 200 pages. I don't know if we'll finish the whole book tonight or not. And well, it's a minis game, so we'll have to. Oh, I already like some of the effects. The Rule of Carnage. Rule of Carnage. Some additional rules include touch it and use it, which means if you have touched your toy, you're going to have to use it. Oh boy, this is looking kind of interesting, especially if you like minis gaming already. Goes into details about setting up, gives you perks. The War Rig, because you can also get your. They also sell minis, by the way. Um, Speaking of which, you can get a copy of the book. I put a link into the description and for those who are curious about this kind of scenario. Oh, and they even go into the scenarios so far, like death races, televised events, wasteland skirmishes, and special events, which are a variety of options. So let's take a look at the timeline here. Wait, what happened to the letter M? What happened to the letter M here? That's a bit odd. Ah well. So timeline is basically Apollo 11 still happened, and then after that we actually managed to put a man on Mars, which means NASA did not get its funding cut. I suspect Richard Nixon did not win 1968. If you're wondering, one of the many platforms that Richard Nixon had was that he was going to cut space funding. To be fair, I think most candidates for 1968 in the Democrat and Republican Party would have at least cut some of NASA's funding, mainly because the moon was kind of the very big final goal, so to speak. And when the Soviets whiffed and ate shit, it kind of just killed any incentive for us to compete with them in space. That's kind of why NASA got cut, especially since, if fun fact, during the 1960s, civil rights advocates actually, on some level, not all of them, but some of them legitimately protested the space program because, in their eyes, that's billions of dollars being sent to send men into space that could be spent at home. So, if you're wondering, that's kind of why our space program kind of got cut in terms of funding in the 70s. There was no point. We kind of just, yes, the Soviets beat us in a lot of scenarios, in particular early on manned space and satellites. They actually focused, if you're wondering, funnily enough, on Venus, which, oh man. Venus is fun. You literally get crushed like a tin can. It's like crashing into the depths of the ocean. So let's see. 1982, civilian Martian colonization begins. I'm actually kind of curious on how they do that. 1991, Martian secession. Oh man, I'm really curious on how this happened. Martian attack and Earth's collapse in 1999, and then the Gaslands TV show launches. So not a lot of details. Here we go. The year is 2018. Earth has been under Martian occupation for 19 years. The war left much of Earth destroyed, and its population enslaved by the corporations of Mars and their relentless efficiency. Earth is a ghetto. All money goes to Mars. While some resent those that betray their fellows to work for Martian corporations, many simply cannot afford ideals. The internet is gone. Oh no. The internet's gone, guys. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna look up all of our weird ideas and desires? How are we going to run games? I mean, in this environment, we're probably not. But television continues under the global control of the network, which I think is based on not the book, not the Philip K. Dick book, The Running Man. No, that's not the Philip K. Dick. No. That's Richard Bachman, the alias of Stephen King. Sorry, got my wires crossed a bit there. I don't think it's based on the book Running Man. Probably more based on the Arnie movie, The Running Man. Yep, the greedy and traitorous Martian collaborators, the network's executive producer, it's not Killian, is responsible for the line of ultra-violent blood sports and gas-guzzling death games. The jewel in the network's crown is Gaslands, the broadcasting amateur and professional death races from across the world as teams battle for a place in primetime international finals. So this spring, Logan's offering a prize unique in the 10-year history of Gaslands, a one-way ticket to Mars. You got to get your ass to Mars. Escape the broken and crumbling Earth to make a new life on the haven of the rich and happy. So this is a big Thunderdome on trying to get to the good planet. So here's the thing. In terms of plot, it's very simple. It's just trying to set up the scenario. Don't particularly like it. I know it's only like just a little bit of a background detail. I just feel like it's kind of the wrong way to go about it if you're going to go with kind of a post-apocalypse. Unironically, I would have just gone with the Mad Max approach. Just have peak oil happen in the 1990s or something. I mean, that would cause a lot of destruction. Another alternative you could have is that the 1983 Able Archer scenario happens. If you're wondering, there was a test. What was it? There was a military exercise known as Able Archer, which terrified some Soviets. We came closer than any other time other than the Cuban Missile Crisis for the nukes to start flying. You could probably do something with that. I mean, I'm kind of nitpicking because at the core of this is a minis game. The plot's kind of just subordinate to the fact that you're driving around in souped up vehicles covered in spikes and machine guns. So, what is Gaslands? This book contains a tabletop game that allows you to play cinematic post-apocalyptic death sports with toy cars. To get your toy cars on the table, you only need to read the basic and additional rule sections, and then just run through the street race introductory scenario. As well as being a tabletop game, it can also be an immersive hobby, because you can actually customize and paint your cars. Again, this is much more of a minis gaming, so they do actually, in the website, I believe you should be able to find your way in the website link. I took you to the book itself, but it should also give you access to their toy cars that you can customize from there. And it allows you to kind of, for those of you who really love to paint and to model and to kit bash, or who just have a bunch of Hot Wheel toys, this is your game. So what is Gaslands? Well, in short, it's a car combat game that combines toy cars, movement templates, and dice that allows you to race, skid, and blast your way through a post-apocalyptic dystopian future. And we'll get into details about it. There are 6 phases, and actually, here's what some of their models look like. This is actually some of their models right here. Death Race the movie, yeah, I could see elements of that. My thinking is they took a mixture of Mad Max, a little bit of Death Race from Grindhouse, and then just a little bit of Twisted Metal, a little bit of the game Twisted Metal. So one of the things is that things will get hazardous, but let's just kind of skip into this. So what type of dice do you need? You need about a dozen six-sided dice. It's a D6 system. And you'll need a set of Gaslands movement templates to measure movement and shooting. Very much like your average minis games, you'll need measurements to try to make sure you don't cheat by moving too much. The nice thing is that they actually are on the back of the physical copy and on this PDF, so it's not too bad. They also do recommend going to gaslands.com if you just don't have it, and it's pretty useful. Now, what are skid dice? Skid dice are six-sided dice with custom faces on them. If you don't have any, you can use normal D6s, which uses the table below, which, okay, that's a bit of a negative. They have customized six-sided dice. This is actually something that Star Wars Edge of Empires also has. Star Wars Edge of Empires also has the same setup, where they have advantages, disadvantages, success, and failure. And I think that actually kind of hurt this system a little bit, because you have to get custom dice just for that game. Not massively so, because honestly, most tabletop game players usually have a bunch of dice. I'm just saying, for your first rodeo on the tabletop scene, probably wouldn't recommend Edge of Empires just because of that, because the dice you get for it, you can't really apply outside of the game. Same thing here. So, what are the skid dice? Result of 1, that's a hazard. You gain a hazard token, which we don't know what that does yet. Probably something bad. A result of 2, you spin, which means that you're running out of control. If you get 3, you kind of slide, kind of the equivalent of hydroplaning if you've ever driven a car in the rain. And 4 to 6 means you have successfully shifted gear, which is pretty good. If you're feeling industrious, you might want to make some custom skid dice, perhaps by printing the symbols on sticky labels and using blank dice. Okay, I'm glad they at least come up with options for that. You'll also need dashboard cards. They're quick references to your vehicle and used to record current values. If you're wondering, they'll be also on the back of the book. I'll actually show the back of it just to give you an idea. We can just kind of hop back to page 12 from there. You'll obviously need a table to play on. And ideally, you want terrain, because this is kind of the aesthetic they're going for. So you could probably get away with using, if you're a Warhammer's player, if you're a Warhammer Fantasy or a 40k player, especially 40k, you could probably get away with using a lot of orc bits. If you're an orc player, just kind of use some of their bits to make some of the terrain. Mars is a lie. You'll also need a set of tokens to represent hazard tokens. Gaming gems, bottle caps, nuts, bolts. Basically, if you can find something that represents it, it'll do. It'll do. Actually, this is something I've kind of noticed. I think a lot of the fun of this game is also just in designing your infinitely dangerous death trap. It's basically designing your own custom track. So if you're a fan of like racing games, you know, some of them allow you to design your own racing course. I think that's kind of like some of the appeal here too. Green is the best color. And ironically, I think if this guy with the who turned his car into a tactical with a flamethrower, I think if this dude painted his car green, he would have won. So, what are the basic rules? So, here are the rules of in Gaslands. If a rule is unclear, choose whatever option results in the most carnage for all concerned. So, if you're not sure on how the rule is supposed to be enforced, look for the one that has the highest body count. That is kind of how this game goes. As for specific rules, the text of a specific rules can conflict with the general rules. In conflicts like that, the text relating to the more specific circumstance, I also don't know why this printing has errors in it, but it's fine. Basically, specifics trump general. Cork and Mork. I mean, you kind of see a little bit of Orky Boy ingenuity here. They made a car dozer. Oh, I love the chicken mesh wiring hiding the tires. That, I mean, I guess that prevents spikes from just instantly, slamming into it and popping them. I don't, I don't get why they couldn't just maybe weight saving. I do like the weird little customizations they do on these though. I think maybe in the hands of a more experienced painter, you might be able to get something a little more magical than this because it's more rust than metal, and there's no real painting color schemes on this particular one. Uh, if the effects of multiple special rules occur in the same time, the controller of active vehicles decides the order. So basically, you get to pick which problem you solve first. And as for vehicles, well, you need a name. You have to give your vehicle or driver a badass name so the crowd knows who to root for. Each vehicle has a maximum gear value. If you're wondering, gear determines how much stuff you can put on it. Handling basically means how good is your vehicle at dealing with dangers? How good are you at dealing with problems? And most vehicles actually have a crew. Scrolling back up, I'll show that. For example, this kind of generic action hero guy in the bubble car from hell probably only has a crew of one. Well, these guys have a crew of two because you see the guy on the back with the flamethrower. And yeah, each vehicle has a current gear value between 1 and 6. Place a 6-sided die in the gearbox on the dashboard card with the appropriate side face up to show the current gear. A vehicle's current gear may never exceed its max gear because cars have a limit. If you try to go over, it just does not work. It'll probably explode. And if you're wondering how hazard tokens work, basically your vehicles pick them up whenever you change gear because something could break. You get caught in a spin because you might slam into something, and just from generally any other effects. If you ever go over 6 hazard tokens at the start of any of your wipeout steps, your vehicle will you'll just action roll to your death. If you're playing with audience votes, you can use thunderous applause to remove hazard. I actually am already kind of liking this minis game. Hey, Chad. I think Adam, the guy who's not a big fan of minis games, might have found his favorite one so far. There's just something goofy about it. I kind of like it. Ah, man. Let's see, there's 9 movement templates: gentle, turn, hard, hairpin, veer, swerve, and 3 levels of straight: short straight, medium straight, and long straight. Ooh, 1 second. Sorry about that. That chicken sandwich was fighting a bit. Oh, look at this futuristic cop car. This retro future cop car. It has an actual air injector. It has an air injector in the engine. And yet it has these old 1950s style headlights. Wow, that's so goofy. I love it. Oh, I love it. It's so goofy. Oh, neat. They actually even put like little sheet metals on the sides of the tires. I gotta admit, while their model painting skill may be not as good as it probably should be, their concept designs for their vehicles kind of look neat. So each movement template has a set of icons to indicate the gears in which you can actually do it. If you're wondering, here's an example. Here's some of them right here. Short straights can only be done in gear 1. Medium straights can go up to 4. Long straights. Oh, wait, no, this I think allows you to shift, I think. Okay. Yeah, you can shift on these. You can't here. And if you try to shift beyond these, I believe you're asking for a hazard token. Oh, these are pretty nicely painted. I'm not a fan of the army camo. I think they're a little too much of the same coloring type. I think you could probably use a little more diversity. Man, I definitely know some of the modeling guys on the Dice Scum Discord are definitely going to be of the opinion that they could probably do a little bit better than this. Still, this one's actually pretty. At least this one has some variety. So how does the round go? So each round is split into 6 gear phases, which are resolved in ascending order. You start with phase 1, you end with 6. In each gear phase, beginning with the player in pole position. Do they actually explain what pole position is? Do they? I don't think they actually explain who's in pole position, do they? Little bit of an error on that part. Little bit of an error on that part. And proceeding clockwise. Oh, I think they're just someone has declared the pole position. Maybe that's how you do it. Maybe. But from there you go clockwise, so you have to know how the analog clock face works, which that's a little fun. When it's their turn to activate a vehicle, if a player has more than one vehicle that qualifies for an activation, they have to choose any of their vehicles because sometimes they're teams. Oh no, we're having an orc theological debate in chat. Is it Gork and Mork or Mork and Gork? I don't remember. I don't remember at all. Let's see. So it goes clockwise. When it's their turn to activate a vehicle, if you have no qualifying vehicles, they have to pass, which I believe relates to if you're in the specific gear. If you're playing with audience votes, you get a chance to spend votes before you're forced to pass, which allows you to possibly get back into the game. We'll have to look into audience votes. Oh, they explain pole position. The player in pole position must activate the first vehicle in each gear phase. The scenario determines which player starts with pole position. Okay. They actually, the scenarios determine it. Okay. I will say structurally the book is relatively competent. I will say they probably should explain things a little bit beforehand, but it's not to the point where I'm completely lost. It's not quite what Rifts was. Not quite what Rifts was. So they go into movement, selecting a movement template. Yeah, but which one's which? We don't know. We don't know. It's a theosophical debate for the ages. So you got to place the movement template. After selecting and placing movement, you declare and roll a number of skid dice up to your handling value. You can also choose to declare to roll no skid dice. And after that, you resolve it. As you know, skid dice 1 to 3, not good. 4 to 6 works fine. Although 2 and 3 aren't necessarily horrible. It just means you're going to spin out or, shift in a wrong way. Shift always goes first. From there, when you change gear, you immediately gain a hazard token unless otherwise noted. You can change any gear any number of times in a single activation, which means you could hypothetically, if you just want to throw the game, if you want to just throw the game, you could just keep shifting until your car explodes in a fireball. You can also use the audience vote to do it too. After resolving all shifts, the active vehicle gains a hazard token for each uncancelled hazard or spin result. Because all shift results must be spent before gaining other hazards, you cannot avoid gaining a hazard from a slide or spin if you choose to resolve it. Let's see. They have okay. So you go into slide or you go to spin. Yeah, but the problem with your orc theological debate, Jim, is the orcs get them confused, so they'll just literally start beating each other up to figure out which is which. So it don't matter. Skid dice tactics. At first glance, it'll look like skid dice have some good results and some bad results. While it's often true you don't want to roll slides and spins, sometimes they actually are something you want to do. And that is the case. Sometimes you might need to Tokyo drift yourself around some rubble that you just don't see because it's like behind a turn or something. Or you just you spin into a better spot because you're about to enter a hairpin or something really silly like that. From there, you have to then go from starting move to final position. If anything is overlapping the vehicle's movement template or its final position, You have to go for interrupted movement because you smashed into something. And here's actually how slides work. Like if you're turning, this is how you enter a slide. If you're wondering, they have little slide tokens. Oh, this is actually pretty well. I actually like this one. This one's actually nicely painted. I actually really like that one. Because this is death races, your cars have weapons, and the weapons you get, they have 3 stats. There's range, where it faces, and attack dice. Oh, how would the orcs react to being the same being Gorka Morka? They would just try to invent new excuses to beat each other up, to be honest. Or they might just try to reject it and reject Gorka Morka, embrace the old ways, or something like that. Now, as for what type of shooting templates you have, well, it's determined by range and does it have a burst effect. And this gives you an example of double range right here. Medium and long, that's double range. As for how bursts go, they actually do have templates to show you how these work. Here's Arc of Fire. And don't worry, like it's mentioned on the back of the book, and actually I think I'll show you guys on the back. On the back of in the back of the book, they do show you what each of these should look like. So here's the pole position token, here's your bursts, here's your distances, here's your slide tokens, here's your turns, and here's what your small bursts look like. So don't worry too much. Like, it's all in the back of this little book, which I actually like. Oh, hey, Twisted Metal. I was right. I was right. They mentioned it. Man, what a weird racing game that was. Let's see. Oh, look at this weaponized school bus right here. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, that's so beautiful. Witness me. They even got a little 75 millimeter on the back. Oh, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, okay, we're back. I just wanted to focus on that because that is a beautiful piece of art. Uh, they also mentioned that some of your weapons do have a 360-degree arc of fire, in which case you have to essentially go determine your range. Now, how does attack dice work? It's the number of d6s that you just kind of roll. Each weapon has a different one. You need, and like Warhammer in a way, you need a 4 or better to hit. 6 counts as a critical hit. In terms of the collision window, you could either evade or take damage. If you evade, if you get a 6, you can cancel one of your hits. Here's another little mini model. Like I said, I think they should maybe diversify some of the coloring aspect on it. Each weapon can select a target independently, so that's nice. So here's the thing. No matter what car you rock into, you're always going to have some form of weapon. And at minimum, you're going to have a handgun. Not much of anything, but it gives you 360-degree arc of fire. It's something there. Oh god, look at this. Killdozer, step aside. It's kill trolley time. Oh, this guy even has a little bazooka on his crap go-kart, on his crap dirt bike. I will admit, I actually really do like the art. And it's a little fiddly. I will agree, it is a bit fiddly on running things like this. I do like it, though. So you roll your attack die, you then roll evade die. After your evade die are applied, you just take the hit. And if you get damaged, it removes a hull point. When a vehicle has lost all of its hull points, it gets wrecked. So yeah, if you go to 0, you just explode in a fireball. Well, not necessarily. You could just die. You could just be dead. Who knows? So wipeouts, what happens here? So all of these stunts cause what are called hazard tokens to occur on your car. especially if you screw up the stunt. Like if you change gear and try to do like a Tokyo drift, if you fuck up, you're going to have quite a bit of hazard tokens. And if you have too many, well, you can wipe out. So what does wiping out do? So if a vehicle suffers a wipeout, you have to do the following. You have to do a flip check. If it's lower than the current gear, you suffer 2 hits and are forced moved medium straight forward. In terms of collision, you either reset regardless of the flip check, you reduce the current gear to 1 and discard all hazard tokens, or you can lose control. The player clockwise of the player controlling the active vehicle pivots the vehicle about its entire point. When you suffer a wipeout, you have to see if it flips. To make a flip check, you roll a d6. If it's equal to or higher to, all's fine. If it's lower, yeah, you flip, and that's not good. Yeah, if you lose control, not great. And they even give you a little example here. So he's just going along, he's driving. Uh-oh, he fucked up, he's sliding. Yeah, this bit of art's a little bit less, this little bit of art's just kind of there. So they have a bunch of different roles. So this is the one I'll focus on since I mentioned it, the touch it or use it role. Once a player has touched a movement template during step 1 of their movement step, they have to select it. You can't change your mind. This is for people who try to essentially go, wait. Basically, you can't. Another rule that you might want to use, because cars can do this, it's called reversing. If you do that, you have to be in gear 1, and it allows you to move backwards. Sometimes you have to do that. Here are some additional skid dice rule if you think you can kind of add on to it. Like trivial maneuvers. If there's a shift icon directly below the shaded gear for the active vehicle's current gear, it's trivial. It means you can just kind of do it. You can also push it. If you choose to push it, you just add a hazard token, and it allows you to pick up any of the number of rolled skid dice and re-roll them. Which means that, and you can also choose to keep some of them. So this can allow you to actually succeed if you didn't otherwise. Some additional attack rules. Basically, cover. You add cover. The driver getting distracted. You can add critical hits. Now, as for damage, so each vehicle has hull points. What happens if you lose all of them? Well, first you skid to a halt. Second, you reset, and then you have to do an explosion check. If you're lucky, you might be able to not die in a horrifying explosion. But either way, oh yeah, no. If you're just wrecked, it's done. Twisted Metal. If it gets wrecked during a collision, perhaps due to damage from a smash attack, remove its wreck from play after resolving all step. Okay, explosions. Basically, if your car explodes, you might be able to take people with you. And wrecks are now a hazard that you have to deal with, because remember, this is also death racing. As for obstructions, sometimes you just run into them. Interrupted movement. Let's see what happens. If a vehicle is interrupted, the final position must be found. It overrides normal final position. If the vehicle being placed at this position and it doesn't overlap any obstruction, it becomes this vehicle's interrupted final. Finding the position, moving forward along, ensure the vehicle follows the line as parallel. Oh yeah, here's a decentish example. Here is a decentish example. Basically, you're partially in the movement. If a vehicle starts a movement step touching an obstruction, the vehicle must ignore the obstruction. So in this case, you have to ignore something like, say, this red car. And you can be interrupted here. Basically, in your movement, if an obstacle's right here, it's kind of implied that you just either nudge it just barely or ignore it. There's also destructibles, which basically allows you to continue. Does it actually say if you take a hit if you do? Let's see. Oh, you just take hazard points. Okay. You can also slide into them, which does that actually take any damage to your hull? No? Okay. This is very tactically based. Oh, here's some good art. But yeah, cars can collide. We kind of covered that with interruptions, and here's a good bit here. Again, they probably should vary some of the colorings on these cars, maybe de-emphasize some of the rust. I know why they're doing it, but it just kind of makes things look a little samey. Like this, for example. Like I get what they're going for. They're getting for like a unified aesthetic, but it's kind of wrong. Like it's just kind of a bit off in my opinion. And we'll just kind of skim through this. So setting up a game. Well, you see, the thing is, Gaslands. If you're doing the game itself, you can start with a single car or a single buggy. More often than not, you have an entire team based around the same thing. Now, the simplest version of the game is just a simple street race. It's a simplified version of the death race scenario that appears later in the book. It's an introduction. It allows new players to understand the rules without adding anything fancy. You just start with your car, and that's simple as. You set up the area, you figure out who has the pole position, and then you do a simple race. So, how do you create a team? Let's go into this. So, you want to build your own customized team? Before each game, agree to a team size with your fellow players. That's the total number of cans you have available to build and equip all of your vehicles. Cans is their equivalent, by the way, of points. Your average team size is going to be between 25 to 100. 50 is standard, but you can go smaller, you can go bigger. You can also choose sponsors. Because remember, this is a death race. This is post-apocalyptic, dystopian, kind of Running Man-esque style death races. So you get to pick who's advertising for you. Oh, that's disrespectful, man. You can build your vehicles from there. Basically, you design your vehicles, and here's how you do that. You pick a vehicle type, you add the weapons, noting the building slots required and declaring a facing for each one, unless it's turret. You add upgrades, noting the building slots you have, and you add perks from classes. So here's the basic types. You got buggies, these are small. Buggies are actually pretty useful because they have what's called a roll cage. They're lightweight, so they're not necessarily the best. They're kind of fragile. Their handling's pretty good, though. Max gear is pretty good. It's just kind of a generalized, pretty okay vehicle. But the thing is with buggies, you don't take damage if you get flipped over because of a because you wipe out. And then you got your cars, and like I mentioned, you got trucks, including up to buses. So if you want to go full like I am Death, Destroyer of Worlds, you can go full heavyweight, which is very fun. So what type of weapons do you have? Well, you got your handgun. Everyone starts with that. You can put on machine guns or miniguns. What else do we got? Oh, here's some other vehicles, by the way, for those of you more experienced, which includes, because I mentioned Twisted Metal, a fucking ice cream truck, of course. You can also get a gyrocopter or a helicopter or tank. Oh man, that's great. You even get a war rig from Mad Max. Oh, it's beautiful. Drag racer with a jet engine. There it is. There's the Twisted Metal Sweet Tooth car. Oh man. And here are some of the other weapons you can get, like a lightning projector, the purple space bazooka, gravity gun, kinetic super booster, the literal doof warrior power, where you just destroy them with the power of amplifiers, and so much more. Oh, here we go. This is actually well done. Kudos to Jake for this one. I actually like this because you see a little bit of the character of the original vehicle. The different goons are painted in different ways. Yeah, this is well done. There's your Diff Warrior. here's your Mad Max right here. Some other weapons you can get are blunderbusses, magnums, cocktails, shotguns and steel nets, and here's some others. You could go full speed racer, by the way, with these. Oh man, this is beautiful. Oh, someone did the Red Baron. Oh, this one's again. Jake is so far the best model maker. I actually really like every one of his models. Oh, that's pretty. Okay. Uh, so what are some vehicle upgrades you can get? So you can each vehicle has a certain number of build slots, which let's actually go back up to get examples. Not here. That's career weapons. No, that's more career weapons. Come on, come on. Okay, so this should give you an idea on build slots. So let's go back up to the basic vehicle types. On average, you usually have anywhere between up to 2 to 5. And each thing that you attach to it has a certain number of build slots. Some, like bikes, only have the one, so yeah. With that in mind, what are some of the things you can add? You can add armor plating, which gives you extra hull points. You can add an experimental nuclear reactor. This only works for Mishkin, which is the one of the. Basically, your nuclear cars are all Russian powered, obviously. Does not work for lightweight vehicles. Vehicle can only purchase this once. It adds to the vehicle's max gear up to 6. It considers long straight to be permitted in any gear. And if you ever fail a flip check, you just instantly fucking explode. Because it's a nuclear powered car. Which I think is pretty great. That's actually really fun. I like that. So on top of that, you have a variety of terrains like roads. Uh, you can discard hazard tokens if you're on roads. If it's rough, you gain a hazard token. If it's treacherous, you gain 2. Because at any point, you could just flip. There's also ramps. And here's what we mentioned with audience votes. How's the Bookman Squirrel Killer? I think it's actually pretty good. I think the biggest negatives are a lot of the models they initially show off probably could have been painted better. I'll actually scroll back up a little bit for those of you who've just joined the stream. Not these ones. Let me scroll up to not. This is actually not a bad example. It's just it tends to be kind of monocolored, which I'm not the biggest fan of. This is a good example of like a base color that's been painted. The modeling they use not necessarily the best, but every now and again they show you what you can do with it. Let me see if I can get. Yeah, here. Not this one. That's not Jake's best work I've seen. Where is his? In the hands of a very good model painter like this guy, Jake Zettelmeyer. I don't know if he has any accounts or anything, but this is a well done vehicle that shows you the potential that you can do with the right modeling kit. In terms of rules, I think its biggest negative is it sometimes is a little bit slow at explaining certain points, but it's not to the point where it ruins your opinion. It's also very regimented and structured. Essentially, your movements are kind of guided via little gridlocks that you can get at the end of the book, which so far I've not had too many issues with. Here you go. Not these. These are your vehicle types. These are the types of turns that you can make, and you start from here as your vehicle, and you kind of enter here. And it also tells you the different gears you can kind of enter in, like 1 to 5 is pretty good. Anything beyond that's hazard. This means that you can do a shift die. This means the hazard. Hazard is not good because if you get over 6, you will wipe. And these are vote tokens because well, it's death racing, and since it's being advertised by evil corporations, well, you have people that vote for your abilities and stuff. So players gain audience votes whenever certain conditions are met. The player, not any specific vehicle, gains them. If a player has one of their vehicles wrecked, they gain a vote. If you start a round without any active vehicles, you gain 2 votes. Each sponsors also provides teams with additional conditions to gain audience votes. So when a player has a chance to activate a vehicle, before the player declares which vehicle they're going to or is forced to pass, you can announce they're spending audience votes. This allows you to get back into the game. You can also use it during your game, like, for example, burning rubber. Select any vehicle you control, you can immediately change gear for applause. Select a vehicle you explode, immediately remove D6 hazard tokens from that vehicle. Basically, audience votes allows you to make this even more chaotic. Which, given this example where you see a bunch of bikers and old-fashioned miners driving a monster truck in the air with a Molotov cocktail, it's pretty fucking insane. You can also respawn. So essentially, much like I think Twisted Metal, which this is based on partially. If you're wondering, Gaslands, from what I can understand, is essentially kind of a portmanteau of all the death races, all of the post-apocalyptic vehicle stuff, and just like your more hardcore racing games. So if you're using audience votes, if you wipe out and lose all your vehicles, you can just come back. Uh, the audience is a comeback mechanic partially. You can also use it to get benefits and bonuses. This is also an optional expansive role. Not all scenarios, not all games of play actually have audience votes. In that case, if you wreck, you're wrecked. You're not going any further if you don't have any more vehicles in the game. Because if you're wondering, their version of points buys is what's called cans. On average, you go between 25 to 100. 50 is considered standard. That usually gets you between 2 to 4 vehicles, depending on how big you go. You can also just do simple street races, which everyone gets one type of car, and you just go off. Also, you don't need to use things like rulers because, again, you use the little backing tools that are in the back of the book. You cut them out, or you just kind of chart them out and kind of use them as like the guidelines to where your vehicle goes. If you spin or you shift out wrong, it has little things you add to show where you are if you screw up the maneuver. But audiences, besides making you come back, you can also do things like executive intervention, which means that you select a vehicle you don't control, the selected vehicle immediately gains hazard. So it allows you to screw over people. Audience votes are more, it can either give yourself benefits, you can use it to screw over the other players, or if you're completely screwed, it allows you to come back. It adds a little more to the televised, because the core of the book is it's supposed to be a televised death race, which means that the audience scores are mainly just to cause more chaos and more carnage, because the rule system in the book legitimately states if there are conflicting errors in the rules, go for the ones that have the highest body counts. Because they go for not rule of cool, they go for rule of carnage. It can make things swingy, so you can choose not to have audience votes. You can choose to. And actually, speaking of televising and advertisement, here are sponsors. Which these are the companies, because the evil, disgusting Martian companies. Because in this timeline, Mars took over Earth, not aliens, Martian colonists. I don't know how they gained enough power to do this, but fine. I think I'd rather just go with the kind of the Mad Max, just peak oil scenario, or just like the world partially collapsed sort of thing. Again, that's the kind of the very quick backstories. Oh yeah, death races should be mayhem. To give you an idea, your vehicle has what are called hull points. At the moment you go to 0, you just wreck. If you're really unlucky, it can explode, taking others with you. Flips, that's what happens if you wipe out. You can wipe out very casually, just depending on what type of road terrain you're on. And in this case, since this is a death race that's on national television, here are some of the sponsors you can get. Rutherford. So let's see. Rutherford is kind of your arch evil Texas businessman. Perk classes: badass and military. Teams sponsored by Rutherford gain the following: military hardware. You can get a tank. Which, if you're wondering, base vehicles, you only go up to buses. If you use the expanded role list, let's go back up. Some of the vehicles you can continue to drive. Let's see. Where are you? That's crew-fired weapons. I don't want to show that part yet. No, that's more. Yes, the ice cream truck, Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck is drivable. If you've ever played Twisted Metal. You can get a drag racer, which has an installed jet engine. You can get a helicopter. You can get tanks, or you can get the Mad Max War Rig. Again, you can also drive armored buses or buggies. Basically, it's whatever vehicle you can think of. And if you want to install like a nuclear reactor or something, well, you can only do that if you're sponsored by the Russians. But still, scrolling down. Miyazaki. So this is another company. So Miyazaki, you get daring and precision. Oh wait, no, I didn't finish Rutherford. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain fart because this book I think is pretty cool if you like mini style, if you like minis gaming, and if you like the concept of just playing with death races. So well stocked. This vehicle considers any weapons with ammo 3, which I think is how many times you can fire, to instead have ammo 4 when purchased, which means you get more ammo. Might is right. You cannot pick any light vehicles, so you cannot go around on dirt bikes. You have to go on heavy vehicles. And televised carnage. If this vehicle causes 6 or more hits in a single attack, which is possible because you do weapon damage by rolls, uh, you gain an audience vote. Basically, if you use your tank cannon to absolutely destroy the living shit out of a dune buggy, the audience will applaud in masses because you have absolutely destroyed them on every level possible with your big fuck off gun. Uh, as for Miyazaki, you gain daring and precision. What you get for Miyazaki is, since this is your kind of standard Zaibatsus, Virtuoso. The first time this vehicle pushes during an activation, you can push it without gaining hazard. Pushing it means that you can re-roll your shift dice, which is one of the other negatives I do have for this book. Shift dice is customized d6s. I've never been a fan of game systems that actually have customized d6s. Well, no, I don't mind playing them. I think they can be fun, but I think it is a negative whenever you do it. Star Wars Edge of Empires has the same problem, where they have their specialized d6 dice that you have to get, which just kind of makes it a bit more of a pain in the butt because constantly have to have on hand either the translation guides for a standard d6 or you have to get the special dice. It's not the end of the world, but it's a minor negative. I will say that this book kind of has a nice ability of saying straight up, if you want to just cover your d6s with like stickers made from our symbols, you can do that instead. And they, I think, give you the template for it. They're not stickers personally, but they're stuff that you can kind of just scan and then turn into stickers. It's not as pretty, but it kind of works. So the other thing Miyazaki gives you is elegance, which is team sponsored by them. May not purchase vehicle types with a base handling of 2 or lower, because these are your Japanese street racers. You know, the ones who do really crazy technical moves. Ah, I don't know what means, Dark Sun. You also get showing off. On your activation, if it's resolved at least one spin result and it resolved at least one slide and changed gear at least once and did not wipe out, you get a showing off token. If a vehicle gets wiped out, they have to discard it. At the end of its activation, every in-play vehicle on this team that has showing off, you discard it all and gain audience points. Where would you buy the video game license for this? It's owned by Osprey Games. Their website, I actually have a copy of it down in the description of this video because I actually do think this is a pretty good book. I got this a couple of years ago, mainly because one of the other members of the crew, Randall, who we do game with, he actually really loves this type of setting, and I thought he might have liked it. And I just finally got around to going and covering this because this was actually very early on. Fun fact, early on in Dice Scum's career, I actually wanted to show off this book. I actually did. Uh, kind of got lost in the shuffle. Some other failed projects were included. We were going to have an entire special on Valentine's Day about the what was it, about the book of erotic fantasy or whatever, that D&D weird Coomer book and other weird stuff. Oh yeah, you can straight up the Batmobile. That could be something that Miyazaki has. Ah, good, powerful Mishkin with nuclear-powered cars. If you're wondering, Mishkin is a Russian industrial giant in this setting, and their big thing is micronuclear reactors, which which means your cars, if you put them in, you can have a nuclear powered car. It gives you better. It gives you much more power. But if at any point you wipe out, if you do a flip, like if you screw up and flip over, your car horrendously explodes into a minor tactical nuke, which can take others with you, which is very fun. Because of that, they have military and technology. Their abilities include Thumper Monkey. You can purchase electrical weapons and upgrades. You get Dynamo. After activating in gear phase 4, 5, or 6, the vehicle may add an ammo token to a single electrical weapon. And you get all of the toys. Whenever a vehicle in this team attacks with a named weapon that has not been attacked with any vehicle during this phase yet, they gain an audience vote. Oh yeah, that's the thing I really like about this book is its backstory is a bit shoddy, just because it's not really about the why this setting exists. It's the how it exists, and this one does a pretty good job. It starts off with a fairly simplistic look at the game system, which I think is from the original Gaslands book, and then it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps building and it keeps building. Like, you can just do your standard street races, or you can go full comical speed racer style corporate Running Man death races in an ice cream truck armed with a nuclear bazooka, because why not? Well, this is a standard model that they actually painted a little better than normal. Kind of helps when there's actually some paint diversity rather than just pure rust. It's not as good as the professional, but it's a bit better. So what about Idris? So Idris's thing is precision and speed. Oh, and if you're wondering, Idris is kind of based on the orc cult of speed. Unironically, they're addicted. He was an addict, and to him, racing is like the best drug. It is like touching the face of God in this crazy person's mind. And as a result, any racing team that he funds, their whole thing is faster, 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 faster. So things you get for Idris is you gain nitro upgrades at half the cost. Speed demons, when you gain hazard tokens because you're using the nitro booster, you only gain hazard tokens until it has 3 tokens rather than 5. They also have the cult of speed. If you select long straights when using nitro, they gain another audience vote. And you cannot purchase gyrocopter because they are the cult of speed. Their big thing is going faster. And here's slime. These are kind of your band. This is like a bandit company. If you're wondering, the basic setup for the lore, if you're really into this Squirrel Killer, is that it is after a civil. It is after the Martians invade Earth. The Martians being during the 1970s, there was a big colonial wave sending people up into space because the U.S. and the Soviets were collectively able to get enough funding in their space budgets to continue exploration. We got Mars colonies by the 1980s. And in the generation, they were able to, just because of unregistered growth in terms of corporate power, overthrow the Earth and turn it into a dystopian hellhole. They turned Earth into a dystopian hellhole, and Gaslands itself is essentially, if you've ever seen the film Running Man, it is essentially teams compete for prizes in horrible death races. And in this generation, the big plot is the winner gets to go to Mars, which is a beautiful rich man's paradise, at least allegedly. For all we know, that could be a complete lie. Like, it's essentially the plot of Running Man. where a variety of people essentially soup up their cars and arm them with weaponry and try to get corporate sponsorships to essentially see if they can actually win in the big race so they can get off this shithole planet. And if you're wondering, Slime, this is basically a bandit group that got so big they became a corporation. Slime rules a wild and feral city in the Australian waste known as Anarchy. Young people crawled out of the wreckage of the scorched earth in their thousands to rally around her banner. The wild-eyed and whooping gangs of Anarchy are led by Slime's henchwoman, the Chooks, who seeks fame and adoration from the global Gaslands audience. Legitimately, Slime is a raider bandit gang that went full corporation. And their main perk classes are tuning, which is your car's conditioning, and recklessness. Stuff you get for them is pinballing. If this vehicle is involved in a collision during its movement step, and this vehicle declares a smash attack, that vehicle can immediately resolve another movement step. Spiked Fist. This team counts the RAM upgrade as requiring 0 build slots. All of their cars have spikes on them. And Live Fast. If the vehicle begins wipeout with more hazard tokens than hull points, they gain an audience vote. It's so dumb, I love it. It absolutely works as a BS plot you need for such a game. Mechanically, this book comes off closer to a Wargamers mini book, which are often hard to port and succeed. I actually think Gaslands could legitimately work as a game. I think it would probably be in the same spirit. I've mentioned Twisted Metal repeatedly, and unironically, they do have a Sweet Tooth reference in this book. Like, one of the vehicles you can actually drive is essentially Sweet Tooth's ice cream van, which I think is pretty goofy, and I like it. Here we go. The Warden. I know there's a few Dice Scum fans that are from Brazil. So, Warden Cadeia is proud to live in Sao Paulo, a shining hub of humanity and relatively untouched by the war. The Sao Paulo's People Penitentiary has produced 3 of Gasland's top 10 teams. So, Brazil legitimately farms its death row inmates. The Brazilian teams farm their death row inmates to host their racing crews. Well, you can kind of understand why these ones are orc-like. Slime and Warden, basically Slime are your Mad Max gangs. The Warden literally sends death row inmates to race, and if they succeed, they're actually let off of the death clock. Idris is the Cult of Speed. Michigan, essentially, their big thing is Tesla tech and electro engineering. Miyazaki is all about that Japanese Aibatsu, and Rutherford is America! All guns, all action, no thinking. So yeah, the whole thing about the Warden is their big things are aggression and being badass. Your vehicles must be your prison cars. Vehicles in this team may purchase the following upgrade: Prison Car. Reduce the base cost of this vehicle by 4 cans to a minimum of 5. Reduce the hull value by 2. Can only be purchased by middleweights, but because they're disposable. The Warden's whole gimmick is they're disposable. They're going to be sent to death anyway. And Fireworks. If this vehicle explodes, its controller gains an audience point if it was middleweight, or 2 if it was heavy. So the big thing with the Warden is, send more men until I win. Oh, this one's pretty cool. Look at this nightmare. Even gave it an anchor. Oh, I actually really like I really like this one. Good on you, Sven. So what about Scarlet? So Scarlet Annie is a legitimate pirate. She is literally running a pirate cult. Okay, here we go. Their big thing is tuning and aggression, and teams throwing their lot with Scarlet and as the captain. They get crew quarters. This team may purchase the extra crew member upgrade at half the cost. Raiders. At the end of the attack, this vehicle may permanently reduce its crew value by any number to a minimum of 0. Remove a hull point from any vehicle in base contact for each crew removed in this way. They literally loot your car. They steal from your fucking car. Oh, I love this. I actually love this. Raise the sail. After rolling skid dice, this vehicle may permanently reduce its crew value by 1 to a minimum of 0 to add a free shift result. Press gang or keel haul. When another vehicle is in contact with it or it's wrecked, you can gain a crew or gain 2 audience vote. Literal pirate car. I love it. Oh god, there's even look at all these. Look at all these corporations. Oh, this is awesome. Holy shit. It just keeps getting better and better. Like I actually really like this, like straight up. Out of all of the dice scummers, a reminder that I, Adam, am probably the least friendly to minis gaming, just because I had some very initially bad examples of it. But no, this actually sounds real fun. This actually has that right energy. I legit like it. I don't know why. I really like it. Highway Patrol. Ah, here we go. You know what? Do Darkest Dungeon style team building and progression. I think they might actually do that, Squirrel Killer. We're just going into sponsors because I know they actually, I think, have crew sheets. So the Highway Patrol's thing is these are the last remnants of kind of a governmental agency. Their specialty is speed and pursuit. Before the first gear shift. Oh, yeah, this is also one of the biggest negatives of the book. Is just every now and again it's missing letters. I don't particularly know why. Might just be a typo error. But before the first gear phase of the game, after deployment, this team must nominate one enemy vehicle as the bogey. If the bogey is wrecked or disqualified, immediately nominate another enemy vehicle to be the bogey. Bogey at 12 o'clock. At the end of this vehicle's movement step, if the bogey's in the vehicle's front arc of fire and further than double range, they can immediately resolve another movement step to fuck them up. Their whole thing is legitimately targeting and wiping out other players. Siren, at the end of this vehicle's attack step, if the vehicle is in the bogey's rear arc, the bogey must either reduce its gear by 1 or gain 2 hazard. And finally, Steel Justice. If they wipe out, this team gains 2 audience points. If the bogey's wrecked, this team gains 4. And you also can get Louder Siren, which replaces bogey with any vehicles for the purpose of siren rolls. Oh, and this one's actually tied to is actually tied to the Brazilian prison warden, the only guy who actually survived. Oh yeah, the formatting of the book is kind of its weakest thing, especially since there are typeset errors. So this guy's the only guy who survived the warden's death race teams. His whole thing is technology and built. He actually specializes in things like microplate armor, trunk of junk, basically building up armor. I think he's essentially the guy from the Grindhouse film Death Race. Or the one, or the driver, the serial killer who had the souped up car. I think he's based on that guy. You have the mad artist. It's 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 literally the mad artist who uses death racing like ballet. Its whole thing is specializing in dealing with spins and drifts without dealing with any problems. That's actually great. Oh, speaking of cults, here's the Order of the Inferno. Yandi Idris is not dead. He cannot die. He rides on in the living flame. His voice can be heard in the roar of the road and the screams of the metal. Yandi is free, and we can be too. He has shown us the path. Only by knowing the flames can we know true freedom. Buy your copy of Freedom in the Flames today to find out more. Available from the Order of Inferno stalls at major trading outposts. Their big thing is horror and speed. And some of the abilities you get from these crazy motherfuckers. Fire Walk with Me. When this vehicle would receive damage from any weapon or effect with fire, the vehicle reduces the damage by up to 3 to a minimum of 1. Burning Man. If it's on fire, you gain +1 to all of your evasion abilities. The Cult of Flame. At the end of gear phases, if there are more enemy vehicles on fire than there are friendlies, all enemy vehicles on fire if there are more enemy vehicles on fire than there are friendly vehicles, or all of them are on fire, you gain audience votes. For each friendly vehicle that's on fire. Okay, this was pretty poorly formatted. Highway Patrol equals fuck him in particular. Yeah, it does, Dark. Beverly, the devil on the highway. The low growling of the starting grid is suddenly eclipsed by an ear-splitting, dizzying sound. Eyeballs shaking, leave loud. Skrill shrieking was a suffocating. A single car drifted forward, windows like onyx. Oh no, this is the death ray. I remember this car, the devil on the highway. I think this one's based on a horror movie with like the devil actually is a driver. Like there's this horror movie I remember where the whole thing is it's a car with tinted black windows that's basically going after and killing people. And allegedly the car is like a psychopomp or controlled by the devil or something, if I remember correctly. Why does it resonate with Warhammer so much? Because they're going for Rule of Carnage. Legitimately, they're going for completely insane, crazy death world. Unironically, you could legitimately have Gasland be a setting in Warhammer 40k. It's a war world that was once an imperial world or a civilized world that is just degenerated into Mad Max insanity, or F-Zero style insanity. Actually, I wouldn't be shocked if at some point we see an equivalent to like Deathborn, or we pass Captain Falcon or something on here. Oh no, no, Beverly's actually based on Christine. I'm stupid. I'm really stupid. Team's haunted by Beverly. Because Beverly's a haunted fucking car. It's a Ghost Rider. The vehicle ignores and is ignored by other vehicles at all times. It cannot be involved in collisions. They cannot make shooting attacks or be attacked with shooting weapons. It never counts on the victory conditions. Soul Anchor. If in all play vehicles from this team have the Ghost Rider special rule, immediately remove all vehicles on this team from play. At the crossroads, if this team may choose to pay only one audience vote to respawn as a vehicle. If they do, their spawn vehicle must gain the Ghost Rider special rule. Inexorable. If a vehicle from this team is a wreck or out of play, it can be respawned. So this is a supernatural fucking ghost car that takes your team back from the dead. If your movement template comes into contact with an enemy vehicle, this vehicle gains a soul token, even if the enemy vehicle is being ignored. If the vehicle's movement template comes into contact with a friendly vehicle without the Ghost Rider rule, you either gain one audience vote for each soul token or repair 2 hull points. Haunted fucking car. I love the direction this is going already. Rusty's bootleggers. That's the hillbillies we saw earlier. Their big thing is reckless and built. Yeah, we've gone into supernatural lunacy. These are all of the car stereotypes. So, Rusty's bootleggers, their whole thing is partying hard and being reckless. At the end of the vehicle's attack step, if the vehicle has more hazard tokens than the sum of all other enemy vehicles in medium range, they gain an audience vote for each enemy vehicle with 1 or more. Dutch Courage, vehicles in this team only wipe out when they have 8 hazard tokens. As straight as I'm able. The vehicle does not gain hazard tokens from the articulated rule if it selects a template that's not as straight. This is beautiful. I love it. Over the limit. The vehicle never considers any of the straight movement templates to be permitted. They have to consider veers. They consider veers trivial since their whole thing is driving drunk. Trailer trash. This team may purchase trailers. This team must contain either 1 or more medium or heavyweight vehicles equipped with a trailer upgrade or a war rig. Haulage. Each vehicle on this team equipped with a trailer upgrade and each war rig on this team can equip the single trailer cargo. So trailer is an upgrade specifically for these guys. Oh man. And here's some of the cargo you can get. Peach Moonshine. This vehicle's Molotov cocktails count as having an infinite number of ammo. Sour Mash Jet Boosters. At the end of this vehicle's movement, if the vehicle has 5 or more hazard tokens, it has to make a forced move long straight. Siphon Pump. Regardless of whether it's distracted, the vehicle can take up to 1 hazard token from each vehicle within short range and place it on this vehicle. Good old-fashioned corn liquor. Whenever a vehicle within medium range of this vehicle gains a hazard token, it gains an additional one. And Cattle Hammer. It considers its current gear to be any value up to this vehicle's max gear during wipeout. Oh, that's hilarious. Drunken driver says a mechanic. So here are the perks you can get as your crew. You get aggression. which, if you're wondering, you get here are some of the abilities like double-barreled, boarding party, battle hammer, terrifying lunatic, grinder man, and murder tractor. You get badass. These are all of the stuff you can get. Here, by the way, one of the vehicle types you can get is the fucking monster truck. This one actually has Katyusha rockets installed on it. I love this book. I am so happy I decided to take a look at this book. And I'm actually happy I'm sharing it with you guys as well. Mm. Mm-mm-mm. God, the other crew members are probably wondering what they're missing when they're getting into this. This is a beautiful insanity. Dead weight, barrel roll, bruisers, crushers, feel no pain. Chrome Whisperers. These are all of the abilities. The Purifying Flames, Ecstatic Visions, Sympathy for the Devil, The Highway to Hell, Violent Manifestations, and Angels of Death. I am what made God go. What did I make? Yeah? I am what God go. What did I make? As a game designer, I'm loving this. As a person who cares not at all about cars, I should be bored. I like racing movies sometimes, racing games occasionally. Here's the military stuff you can get. There's Precision, Moment of Glory, Easy Rider, Pursuit, Reckless. That's a team I think connected to. No, it can't be Slime. They don't got the spikes on front. Speed, Technology. Like these are how you can customize your teams. By the way, at this point we have to do a one shot. That could be very fun. I don't know when. I don't know when I'd actually get around to this, but it could be fun to do a stupid street race with this stuff. So war rigs. So what's a war rig, you ask? You probably have seen it. Mad Max Fury Road did an example of that. These are your big super death vehicles. So war rigs are stupidly huge, and as a result, they have a variety of different mechanics. It has articulated, ponderous, and pile driver. An articulated vehicle is comprised of two parts, the cab and the trailer. An articulated vehicle, you must declare whether it's mounted on the cab or trailer. Articulated movement, they actually factor in if you have a trailer. Case in point, here it is. To pivot, here's the thing. If you're pivoting, they have a couple more hazards that you have to worry about, like jackknifing. They're ponderous, they don't maneuver well, but they're hard to shift from. If you get wiped out, you don't pivot it. You basically just get fucking wrecked. Because they're so big, pile drivers don't really care. Like, these things are big. They don't care. They will shove your ass away. And here are the ways to play. In this section, you'll find a number of different ways to play Gaslands. First is Death Race. Then there's the Arena of Death, Capture the Flag, Flag Tag, and Saturday Night Live. I would love to make a train for this. I might need to look into the book. Like I said, I did leave in the description. The website, particularly the area to get a copy of the PDF and I think the hardback as well. I also do know that there are more details on the website. Like I mentioned, I actually did get this book a couple years back, and I'm kind of glad I did. This is actually really fun. So other skirmish, there's also wasteland skirmishes and special events. For wasteland skirmishes, there's automated salvage, express delivery, scavengers, the revolution will be televised, and zombie bash. For special events, Big Game Hunter, Desert Strike, Monster Truck Smash, Tank Commander, and Truckosaurus. Yes, the Truckosaurus is a thing. So the most common is essentially death racing, which you set up a course, you design the racetrack. Here's some examples of that. You have different team rosters. You determine who's in pole position, and then from there, here's your starting grid, and you just kind of do the race. It is a straight up race. There's also the Arena of Death, which is just basically last man standing. It's basically last man standing. Choo-choo, motherfuckers! I am the war rig that other war rigs fear. I don't. I'm surprised they didn't actually have trains set up as a possible like design feature. They do have buses, so I'd probably stat up a bus and make it bigger, or just take the war rig and make it a train. Saturday Night Live. Layouts and terrain to represent a dystopian demolition derby because that is it's demolition derby. The special rules are screen time. A vehicle only gains victory points if they're within double range of any enemy vehicle point at the point the victory points would be gained. Prizes mean points. Your whole thing is to cause enough insanity that people pay attention to you. Victory points are earned by basically getting attention. Now, as for wasteland skirmishes, this is basically your looting shit. Your whole thing is to just try to get as much crap as possible. Express delivery is to make stuff get to places on time and the opposing team is trying to stop you. Scavenger party. Basically, it's a race to the position and getting the loot. The guy with the most stuff wins. The revolution will be televised. An undercurrent of rebellion doesn't collect in the back alleys and bars across the globe. The pro-Earth resistance seeks to loosen Mars' stranglehold on the Earth and see Earth take back its destiny into her own hands. They are scattered, weak, and poorly organized, but always finds a way to broadcast their message of freedom. So, what's the setup for this? The uplink. At the start of the game, whenever a new uplink is revealed, the players with pole positions revealed their noted terrain piece. Resistance broadcasts. The player would gain a victory point, may choose to gain a resistance point instead. Victory conditions. The player with the most victory points at the end of the game is the winner. Censorship. If you're playing a televised season, any player that's gained the number of resistance points during game does not gain any championship points. And last but not least, Zombie Bash. The wastelands of the irradiated States of America. It's not the United States of America. It is the irradiated States of America. Are no longer quiet. The graves of 1 million Americans lie empty, the eerie and radioactive occupants roaming the highways in undead hordes. So, for this one, you're going to need a fuckload of zombie figures. About 15 to 20 millimeter zombie figures. I think you can get them from the website, or just use anything of that size. It doesn't matter. That's another thing I kind of like is they don't actually push their shop as much as they could. They could have pushed it more, but they don't. So the thing is, vehicles cannot attack zombies. Zombies don't count as obstructions. If a vehicle movement template or final positions touches a zombie, you may collect that zombie. The game ends when either fewer than 10 zombies remain in play or one player has collected 20 zombies. Special events include Big Game Hunter, which I think in this case is, let's see. You have to fight giant radioactive mutant lizards and insects. So you might consider using plastic dinosaurs or oversized insect toys. Oh my god, this game. It's the gift that keeps on fucking giving. Oh man. I'm so glad I decided to stream this tonight. Guys, do you still have your old plastic toy dinosaurs or just some random rubber insects around? Well, here's the scenario. You can have your guys fight them. Oh my god, I love this fucking book so much. It's so insane. Oh god, I love it. The art is much better on average than the mini photos in this, a sad consequence of the poor painting quality. Yeah, I think that's legitimately one of the biggest problems are they're trying to show off their car models, but other than like some of the professional painters they did, god, their base painters are not very good. That's like one of the biggest negatives. I think it also is partially because if you're wondering, Gasland's whole thing is you can also just use if you have old Hot Wheels or Matchbox toys, you know, the old your old racing cars toys, or if you just have them on hand, you can use them instead. That's kind of something I legitimately like. Kind of has that BattleTech energy just because of the whole. It allows you to kind of do a lot of substitutions. Oh no, yeah, that's the thing about this book that I like. You just need the book, and after that, you just need to basically get stuff from a dollar store, and just design your own tracks. You're trying to make it look a little like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. But as for the giant radioactive creatures, yeah, there's some things they can do. And the victory conditions are: if a vehicle wrecks a creature, the vehicle's controller gains a kill and 2 audience votes. You have to have 2 creatures within short range. The first team to have killed 2 creatures is the winner. Desert Strike, to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of the heroic Battle of London, in which 600 brave and patriotic free Martian pilots defended the inalienable rights of Martian independence by firebombing more than 20 square miles of enemy enclaves at the center of the city of London. I, I will admit, while the formatting's not necessarily the best, they tapped into the insanity in the exact way it needed to be. This book is glorious. I fucking love it. You don't select teams normally. Instead, each team must build a team comprising of only helicopters and gyrocopters. The whole thing is who can blow up the most of the arena. Monster truck games, obviously, that one's pretty standard. And last but not least, Tank Commander, because remember, tanks are a thing, and that is I think a Panzer VI Tiger. I think that is a model of a Tiger. That is a long, either that or it's a Panzer IV. I'm not necessarily the most visible on tanks, but this does have German tank engineering energy. I'm thinking Tiger, could be wrong. If I'm wrong, it's okay. I'm a dumbass. Actually, no, that's a Panzer IV. I'm pretty sure it's a Panzer IV. I'm stupid. Anyway, the whole thing about this one is each player is given a single. Everyone is given a tank, and you basically go on a big death run. If you already do 3D D&D battle maps or wargaming, you are a dollar store away from a weekend with the boys doing with really good-looking racing courses. Yep, yep. Also, you can use some of the monsters from D&D to represent your giant radioactive monsters if you're going to do the Safari Hunter thing. So, if a player successfully causes an enemy tank to become wrecked, that player gains a kill. First team to 3 wins. Truckosaurus. Legend tells of a beast with skin like steel, whose claws can cut through cars like paper, and whose very breath is white-hot death. From the depths of your nightmares arises a terror so thrilling you will be unable to resist. For premium subscribers only, Truckosaurus lives. Place the Truckosaurus in the center of the table. The player with the pole position selects its facing. They actually Truckosaurus is a heavyweight vehicle with a handling value of 2, crew value of 4, and infinite hull points. It cannot push it and cannot gain hazard tokens. It has the pivot special rule and may pivot in any gear. It has up and over special rule. Truckosaurus is armed with flamethrowers, cannons, and a lot of other weapons. Witness: if a vehicle declares a smash attack against Truckosaurus during its own activation, they gain an audience vote. Truckosaurus lives. Any player with an active vehicle in play may spend 3 audience votes whenever they would ordinarily be able to spend audience votes to activate it. When it activates, it counts as being the same current gear as the current gear phase. Truckosaurus feeds into the danger zone. How do you get victory points? Every time a vehicle is destroyed during Truckosaurus' activation, the player who activated it gains a victory point. So basically, it's the goal to awaken the monster and have it destroy your enemies. Campaigns. While Gaslands can be used to play one-off wasteland scraps or death sports, players might find it a satisfying experience to play a series of games as a campaign. Gaslands provides 3 ways to play a series of linked games. The first is a simple method to grow and expand your teams over time. Second is to adjudicate a winner after multiple games. The third is for games looking for more detailed and involved campaign systems. So, the 3 methods are escalating the seasons. Basically, you slowly grow your team size. And then you have what are championship seasons in between. You can also do televised seasons, which is where you do the structures. And this is how this works. and it would be from the point of view of your teams, the ones that survive. You can also play around with the pro Earth resistance, and the result is basically winning the season if at least one game of the Revolution will be televised has been played. The team with the most resistance points at the end of the season actually becomes the pro Earth resistance general. You can also hire teams, and here are some of them. Pre-game sequences, sabotage tokens, which is a thing that you can actually do. Before each televised event, a player with 3 or more resistance points can actually sabotage the other teams. And from there, you do the post events, which include spoil, stash, contact, and resistance. This is the stuff in between sessions you can do, or like at the end of each war game. Savage Highways, and this is like your narrative campaign. Here's an example, by the way, of a war rig. This one actually has a fucking rocket attached to it. I think it's a rocket. It's kind of insane. And this is just kind of like an example of a campaign you can do. In this case, it's just kind of trying to head back home. And here's some notes and thoughts. If a game is taking too long, if you find that Gaslands is running a little long, particularly when playing with more players, try the following recommendations. You can play with fewer cans, such as 25 per player, or only permit up to 2 vehicles per player, and ignore the touch it and use it rule if players are agonizing over template choices. If you're playing Death Race, place the gates closer together. And again, if the rules are unclear, Rule of Carnage, and also the website usually has FAQs for it. If you're not required to base your vehicles, the choice is yours. Toy cars tend to have pretty regular footprints, so you shouldn't find too many issues unless your converted vehicles are kind of nuts. Here are the base sizes, kind of equivalents. You can also change the scales if you're struggling. I really do like some of the modifications. Osprey Games, it's also a Planet Smasher game, so you can go to planetsmasher.com. And overall, yeah, this is basically it for Gaslands. Little bit of a wild ride, but again, we were covering a car destruction game. And I was also kind of by myself for this entire run. So, my thoughts on the game. So, here's the thing. Gaslands is an evolution of a 2017 game that was made. This is kind of, the refueled version is actually a revitalized version of it. And overall, I'd actually say I can't rate it an amazing game just because there are quite a few formatting issues, missing letters. I also feel like the formatting is a bit sparse. It does go into details pretty solidly, but I will say some of the terms they kind of throw it out a bit early, similar to how Rifts does it. I will ultimately say though that it's a really wild ride. It's really insane. It, it actually kind of has a lot of modularity to it. If you want a simpler kind of street racing style game, this is your cup of tea. If you wanted to go crazy, they have a variety of variation rules to have in place. Same with vehicles. It can be as complicated or as simple as you make it. It's very toolkitty. And there's just something nice to be said that this game legitimately advertises just going to your nearest dollar store, Poundland, or your equivalent to like a discount store just to find like little micro toys or something to just kind of use. That is actually pretty nice. I will say, out of all of the minis gaming that I've actually looked into at all, this one might actually be my favorite just because it's kind of insane. I could definitely see myself playing this as a monthly thing with some friends or even with some kids. It's very accessible. Yeah, I actually agree with that Squirrel Killer. Oh, yeah, and like I mentioned, I've shown it before, but just because I feel like, oh, actually, I really should. Uh, there is more to go with it. This is kind of area is very simple. This is the quick reference guide near the end of the book, which this way you don't have to go through the whole book. I legitimately like the quick reference guide that it has. There's your movement, attack step. It really just kind of goes really simple, really quick. I think this might have been the original book, and it just goes into all of the stuff you can kit. And here are all of the cards that represent what you have: bikes, buggies, full throttle pivot, this sort of stuff. This is your dashboard. This is your dashboard reference card. and how many cans each of these cost. So you can kind of just print them and use them as needed. These are heavy trucks and buses. I think these are war rigs. And last but not least, here are the reference tools for hairpins, hards, turns, gentle turns, bursts, swerving. Your straights, slide rules. This is your pole position. I really like how they just have this all available. And here are all the other tokens. Ammo tokens, if you're wondering, or how many times you can use a weapon. But yeah, like I said, overall, I'd say it's a pretty good game. It's very accessible, very modifiable. It allows you to make it as simple or as difficult as you want. And out of all of the minis games, this is easily my favorite, probably. I actually can legitimately see myself playing it every now and again. Not necessarily in the campaign format like they mentioned, but for like a one-off crazy deathmatch run. Yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it. Plus, any book that goes completely insane, like I think what really won me over was that it kept ramping up. Like it starts simple and you're like, oh, that's kind of neat, and then it keeps going, and then it keeps going, and then it keeps going, until it culminates in the irradiated states of America, where you're capturing zombies or fighting goddamn dinosaur toys that you also got from the dollar store. It's very modular, though you could sell expansions for this easily with new sponsors and modules. I wouldn't be surprised if there are more sponsors and modules. I don't know if this actually ever got updates. I'd have to really do a little bit of looking. Actually, I'm here. Might as well. We still have just a little. It's a pretty short run of the book, so let's take a quick look. Actually, let us take a quick look. All right, let's take a look at Gaslands. What other books did they make? Gaslands Legacy. Oh, they have a vehicle generator, actually. They actually have a vehicle generator. That's kind of neat on their website. Gaslands Legacy. Let's see what else they have. Game overview. Nope, not that area. I should have just gone to the store. Man, my brain is not good. They have Friends of Gaslands, which includes links to where you can get accessories and weapons, accessory and bits, templates, tokens, and widgets. A lot of it's from the UK, but you can also get it from the US and Canada. You can also get it from for Australia and the rest of the world. It's mainly just where you can get their supplies from. It's no, it's just from what it looks like, it is just the refueled version. Huh. That's a bit sad. I actually think you could get an expansion pack. It's genuinely a pretty unique. It's a relatively unique concept that I actually kind of like a lot. Oh well, at least it's good to know. All in all, I will say that yeah, I rate this a high. I rate this a fairly high good. I can't quite rate it an amazing just because there are some formatting issues with the text, and also it's just. I would say that the formatting of the book itself is a bit weak. It is a very insane and modular game, though, and from a guy who's not a big fan of minis, no, I would say this is probably one of my favorite ones I've seen. So, for those of you who mainly tuned in for World of Darkness, the next book that we're going to cover is actually not World, but Chronicles. We're going to look at Cold War era Demon the Descent. It's not Old World Demon where you're playing as fallen angels or native devils and demons that were from before the fall. No, 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 no. In this case, you are playing renegade mechanical constructs from the God Machine. And in this case, you're playing around in Berlin, East and West Berlin, but it's not Berlin by night. There's no vampire Himmler in this game. It's just demons playing against the Warsaw Pact and NATO to either try to cause World War III to happen or to avoid World War III. It really depends. So that's going to be pretty fun. And with that in mind, Have an excellent night. I know this was a bit of a short stream, but sometimes you need it, especially after the Odyssey that was reading Werewolf 5th. Have an excellent night, everyone. And drive crazy and get this book. Oh, and one last thing. Feel free to leave a like, feel free to subscribe, and also the Discord is also in the description link. Now I can say so long and don't wipe out, or the irradiated zombies will get you. Night, y'all.